those moments, right, where someone seems a bit lost,
Yeah.
maybe a friend or a colleague, and you want to jump in, offer some helpful advice, specifically in English.
It happens all the time. Someone's worried about a job or stuck on something.
Exactly. And that skill, that knack for giving advice, well, politely but effectively, that's what we're digging into today.
It really is a skill, and maybe one that doesn't get enough attention. Because how you say something, well, our sources really stress this. It can make all the difference.
Oh, absolutely. Between being helpful and just, being ignored.
Yeah.
Or worse.
Right. So we're going beyond just listing words. We're looking at the art of it, making guidance actually feel helpful.
Because we've all been on the receiving end of advice that just didn't land right, haven't we? Even if it was meant well.
Definitely.
So this deep dive, it's about giving you some simple tools, powerful ones though, to avoid those issues. We'll look at common phrases, see how they work in like real situations.
Yeah, context is key.
And really focus on tone, how the way you sound changes everything. Okay, let's get into it.
So let's start with the basics, the actual phrases. Our sources kick off with some foundational ones. Things like, you should. If I were you, I would. Why don't you?
The classics.
Yeah, and also, it might be a good idea too. And have you thought about, these are sort of the entry points.
Right, the ones you probably learned fairly early on. But it's interesting, even small changes in wording feel different, don't they?
You really do. And the material gives us more options too, like, you could try.
Oh, I like that one. Feels gentler.
It does. Or, my advice is to, which is quite clear, and I recommend that you.
Oh, it's like a spectrum. From very direct to much softer suggestions.
Exactly that. You mentioned you could try. See how that feels like just one possibility, less pressure.
Yeah, definitely. Good if someone's feeling a bit sensitive, maybe. Or you just want to offer an option, not a command.
Precisely. Whereas you should can sometimes be okay, maybe with someone you know well, someone who appreciates directness.
True. Depends on the relationship, I guess.
It often does. So it's less about telling people what to do and more about offering paths, helpful ones.
Okay, so let's see this in action. The source gives us this scenario. Emily, right? She's stressed about an exam.
Yes, Emily. It's a great little snapshot. So someone tells her you should make a study schedule.
Okay, quite direct, actionable.
Then it shifts slightly. If I were you, I would start reviewing the hardest topics first.
So that brings in the personal angle. If I were you, plus a reason hardest topics first.
Right. Then we get, why don't you try taking short breaks while studying?
Phrased as a question. That feels less imposing somehow, like suggesting an experiment.
Exactly. And finally, it might be a good idea to join a study group as well.
Might be a good idea. That's even more indirect, almost just planting a seed.
You can really hear the different levels, can't you? Even in that short exchange, from directive to quite gentle.
Yeah, it shows how you can navigate giving advice without being, well, too pushy, choosing the right level of intrusiveness, maybe?
That's a good way to put it. That it might be a good idea is much less imposing than the you should. It shows the power of these little word choices.
Okay, and there's another Emily example, right? Improving her English this time.
Yes, another very common situation for listeners, I imagine.
For sure.
And again, we see a similar mix of phrases, just adapted. So, you should practice speaking every day.
Direct instruction again.
Then, if I were you, I would listen to English podcasts. Always good advice. To improve listening skills.
Personal recommendation, clear benefit. Makes sense.
Then the question form. Why don't you join an English conversation group?
Suggesting an action through a question.
And finally, that softer one again. It might be a good idea to record yourself speaking and listen to it.
Suggesting a technique, but gently.
It really shows how flexible these basic structures are. You can use them for almost any kind of advice.
But it's not just the words, is it? The source material really hammers home the how, the delivery.
Oh, absolutely crucial. The politeness factor, that helpful tone. They specifically bring in even softer options, like you might want to. And it could help if you.
And there's that warning about sounding bossy. I've all heard that kind of advice, right? Feels more like an order.
And it rarely works, does it? Even if the idea itself is good.
Why do you think that is? Why does that bossy tone just shut people down?
Well, I think it can feel like your own judgment isn't trusted. or isn't valued.
Right, like you're being told you don't know what you're doing.
Exactly. It triggers resistance.
Yeah.
Because it feels like it's undermining your autonomy, your ability to decide for yourself.
That makes sense.
And it's amazing how a tiny change, like you said, from you have to do this to you might want to consider this, totally different feeling.
Transforms it from a command to a suggestion, something you're actually willing to think about.
That supportive tone as the source is stressed just makes people so much more receptive.
It feels collaborative, even though you're the one giving the advice, like you're on their side.
Yes, it respects them. And if you think about communication generally, the how is often just as important, if not more important, than the what.
So true. Being aware of your language, your tone, it makes a huge difference in whether the advice actually helps someone.
Definitely.
So for you listening, what does this all mean practically? Well, it's about actually using these phrases, taking this awareness of tone and applying it. The source really encourages trying them out, with friends, family, maybe colleagues.
And that brings up a key point.
Yeah.
How do you get comfortable with them? It's one thing to understand, another to use them naturally.
Right. Just knowing the phrases isn't enough.
And the suggestion is simple, but effective. Practice saying them out loud.
Ah, okay. So not just reading them, but actually speaking them.
Exactly. It's like muscle memory for your mouth and brain. Getting comfortable with the sounds, the rhythm of these English patterns.
It's like learning anything, really. Music, sports. You have to practice the movements until they feel natural. Second nature.
Precisely. The more you rehearse, even just talking to yourself, the quicker they'll pop into your head when you need them in a real conversation.
And that builds fluency and confidence. You feel more capable of offering help in English.
And it highlights that active learning is key. You can't just passively absorb this stuff. You have to engage with it.
Try them out, yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine scenarios. See how the different phrases feel when you say them.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive on giving advice in English, let's do a quick recap.
Good idea.
We've looked at a whole range of phrases, from the direct "you should" to the much softer "you might want to."
We saw how they work in everyday examples, like with Emily.
And we really underscored how vital that polite, helpful tone is, making sure your advice is actually welcomed.
And connecting this back, to your bigger English journey,
Yeah.
mastering these nuances, it really boosts your ability to connect with people.
Makes navigating those social interactions smoother, more confident. It's about being clear, yes, but also considerate.
Absolutely. So here's a thought for you today. Think about a situation, maybe coming up soon, where you could offer someone advice in English. How might you use some of these phrases intentionally?
Ooh, good challenge.
And also start listening. Notice how native or fluent English speakers around you give advice. What words do they choose? What's their tone like?
Yeah, observation is such a powerful learning tool.
It really is.
So maybe the final question for you to think about is, how will you actively practice these strategies? How will you work on blending clarity with kindness in your own advice giving?
Keep practicing, keep listening, keep learning. You're doing great work.
Absolutely. Until our next deep dive.